One of the things that Susan envisioned when she came up with this conference was making sure that it wasn't just a bunch of Western jewelry industry people talking to each other. And so bringing people from mining communities and source communities to have a voice and a seat at the table and participate in establishing the initiatives is what differentiates the Chicago Responsible Jewelry Conference, and it differentiates us in a very big way because we establish relationships across the supply chain, which is where change happens. This year, we had an incredibly difficult time getting visas and getting people into the U.S. And sometimes the problems were here, and sometimes the problems were in origin, on the other side. But we had a very difficult time getting people here that should be here. So the next two quick presentations, Susan is going to come up and be the voice for two of our participants. So the first one is, we're doing it in this order. Okay, we're going to start with the African Union's Africa Mining Vision, and that's Mkhululi and Ncube's presentation on what the African Union sees as a mining vision for that continent. And so there's a video, and then Mkhululi is up in the middle of the night in Ethiopia on Facebook chat, ready to take your questions. So Susan will then field his answers for you from there. And if you guys, I can post the group chat somewhere if you'd like to be in there as well, I think. I don't know if I should promise that. I'll try to do that when I go back to the other side of the room. And then after that, there's going to be a brief presentation that Susan and Nkosilamandla put together. And she's going to do those both right in a row because Chico could not get here because of visa issues. So that's what's up next. So Susan, on up. So you guys can go ahead and start the video.
Greetings, everybody. My name is Mkhululi Nkosilamandla, coming all the way virtually from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I am the Programs Officer at the African Minerals Development Center, a specialized agency of the African Union tasked with implementing the Africa Mining Vision. I am pleased to be part of the Chicago Responsible Jewelry Conference for 2023. Albeit virtually, but hopefully next year we'll be able to be together. My presentation today is going to be on the Africa Mining Vision and, of course, an introduction to the Africa Gemstone Jewelry Exhibition and Conference. We like to call it AJEC. Right, so I'll go straight into it. So the Africa Mining Vision was launched in 2009 as a blueprint for ensuring that there's a transparent, equitable, and optimal exploitation of mineral resources to underpin broad-based sustainable growth and socio-economic development of the continent. This was on the backdrop of how for years the continent had been languishing in mineral wealth, but economic poverty. So this is supposed to be changed. The socio-economic transformation of the continent is supposed to now come out through the Africa Mining Vision being realized. So 4 years later, in 2013, the African Minerals Development Center was launched as a special project at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa to provide strategic operational support and coordination for the implementation of the Africa Mining Vision and its action and business plan. So for the next 5 years, from 2013 to 2018, the AMDC as a project strive to become a repository of knowledge on matters relating to the AMV, how to implement it, how to realign African country policies, regulatory frameworks, and to extensive in laws to align them to the Africa Mining Vision. By so doing, a number of Africa Mining Vision implementation instruments were developed. In 2016, a statute was established to ensure that AMDC becomes a fully operational standalone entity for the Africa Union. And then in 2018, the Africa Union Assembly of Heads of State and Government endorsed the Republic of Guinea-Conakry to host the AMDC after a competitive bidding process amongst African countries. In 2019, the AMDC project at the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa was officially handed over to the Africa Union. A host country agreement was signed with Guinea-Conakry in 2021. And in 2022, under the Organization for African and Caribbean and Pacific States in the EU Development Minerals Program, an interim secretariat of which I am part of was successfully recruited to bring the AMDC home. Now, the implementation instruments that I referred to earlier, today I'll only focus on 5. The African Minerals Governance Framework, the African Mining Vision Private Sector Compact, the Country Mining Vision Guidebook, the African Minerals and Energy Classification Framework, incorporating the Pan-African Resource Reporting Code, AMREC-PAC, and the Africa Union Commodity Strategy. So the African Minerals Governance Framework, or AMGIF, has been designed to deepen the commitment to implementing the Africa Mining Vision, serves as a monitoring tool to help African countries to determine their progress, and for them to realize whether or not they are getting the transformative ambitions of the vision. Beyond serving as a monitoring and accountability tool for the AMV's implementation, the framework is proudly holistic and comprehensive that responds to the specific challenges that face the continental mineral sector. Now, the AMGIF and one of our other implementation tools, the Private Sector Compact, may be jointly used in reference when we're engaging the established mining entities on the continent, vis-a-vis the large-scale mining companies that are on the continent, and their interface with the artisanal and small-scale mining homegrown entities on the continent. So on metals institutional framework and capacity, the governance framework will provide assessment quizzes to foster viability, progressivity, and sustainability of the artisanal and small-scale mining subsector, to contribute in growth and development through access to training, extension services, finance, marketing, and cleaner, efficient technologies, of which we hope the large-scale mining entities on the continent will interface with the artisanal and small-scale mining entities on the continent through the AMGIF and the Private Sector Compact frameworks. For example, an explicit AMGIF assessment question that exists is: what are the technical interventions or programs for building the capacity of artisanal and small-scale mining? This is a question that a country may ask itself on its way to ensuring that it interfaces with the AMV aspirations based on the questions of the African Minerals Governance Framework. Now, the approaches that come based on the AMGIF, we talk about community engagement and participation, whereby we foster meaningful engagement with local communities, especially those affected by mining activities. We talk about encouraging community participation and decision-making processes, what some of you may know to be amongst the tenets of the social license to operate. It talks about promoting a culture of safety through awareness campaigns, training, and of course, there should be incentivized awards for good practices. In terms of capacity building and training, the idea is to invest in training programs, right, in collaboration with partners or stakeholders, to enhance the skills and knowledge of mining professionals whilst conducting regular health assessments within mining-related communities, and provide necessary medical support for those miners simultaneously. Of course, we also promote continuous learning and professional development in the mining sector, especially of those that are within the artisanal and small-scale mining. In terms of technology and innovation, we embrace technological advancements and are aligning our financial inclusion efforts to improve adoption of formalization efforts. Here we're talking about how mobile operators on the continent and, of course, financial technology companies are going to go a long way in adopting financial inclusion towards formalization of artisanal and small-scale miners. We also talk of investing in continuous research and development for innovative solutions to address safety challenges. Now, in terms of financial support and incentives, the idea is, of course, to provide support, as mentioned before, for artisanal and small-scale mining in its interfacing with large-scale mining, so as to adopt responsible sourcing practices. This is, of course, clearly something that the current meeting is very concerned about, and of course wants to ensure that is maintained as a practice. So we also talk of incentivizing the setting up of side stream and downstream startup investments in terms of local content, provision of local equipment, provision of training and technology, all in the bid to promote rural entrepreneurship within areas where artisanal and small-scale mining exists, and thus creating economic and employment opportunities and ensuring economic resilience. Of course, the other idea, which is something now we are constantly talking about, is how to establish or enhance artisanal and small-scale mining community rural centers or hubs that morph into both platforms for information sharing, for sharing best practices, for sharing lessons learned, and of course, as spaces that youth can come and research and build their capacity within mining communities, especially within gemstone mining communities, in gemstones grading and cutting and polishing, vis-a-vis valuation. And then now I will speak of briefly the Africa Gem Jewelry Exhibition and Conference. The Africa Gem Jewelry Exhibition and Conference aims to showcase the wealth of gemstone occurrence in Africa, to build and provide a regional platform mechanism to foster shared value creation amongst gemstone and jewelry producers on the continent, and then to maximize on the intra-Africa trade opportunities that are being availed by the African Continental Free Trade Area, whilst ensuring that loans are not necessarily meant to be going beyond the continent, but when they are moving within the continent, value addition can actually happen within the continent. We understand that gemstones and jewelry are meant to be a luxury item, but of course, with the continent that is forecasted to have the growth trajectory aligned to its youthfulness, we assume, and of course, it is only apparent that it will happen, Africa is going to start having to trade in its own luxury goods as well. So as much as we do provide gemstone and jewelry to the rest of the world, we are also aiming to ensure that we provide the same gemstone and jewelry across the continent. As such, there will be an AGIC series of events that will feature at all times a conference bringing together a range of stakeholders, those from African member states, large-scale gemstone miners, local and international, artisanal and small-scale mining, and medium-scale enterprises, civil society, investors within the continent and from beyond, private sector associations, researchers, and academics. The inaugural AGIC event took place in Dola, Zambia, in this past July. And the confirmed next ones are in 2023 in Lagos, as well as in Accra. Lagos will be in September, Accra will be in November. For this, I thank you. And with that in mind, I am hoping to be able to take questions. If not, you can always send me an email, or you can speak to me through Susan Wheeler. Thank you.
Okay, we have time for questions with Muku, who's online.
While we're waiting for the first questions, a few of us were at that first AJAC African Union gem exhibition. Pauline was there, Jess was there, I was there. I don't know if anyone else in the room was, but it was, I learned a lot of things. I don't know if anyone knows it, in Guinea they're gonna start their own diamond processing and cutting facility. It's interesting that the next one's in Lagos. We talked about there are other, many people know Mina Stone, a Nigerian jeweler, and I met a few other Nigerian jewelers. We'll have Ola here tomorrow, where they are successfully selling high-end jewelry back to Nigerian women who love the luxury jewelry market. In Ghana, I had a great presentation as well. They'll be here next year. They've been here before, the government, about the type of jewelry that they are selling that's made from Ghanaian gold and Ghanaian gems. So there was, I learned a lot just being there. So if anyone has questions for Muku, yes. Andre, are you going to type those in? Or maybe he can hear. Let's see.
Hi, thanks so much. This is really exciting. Christina Mall, jeweler and part of Ethical Metalsmiths. And I was wondering if the minerals we're talking about are precious, or if this also covers rare earths or critical earth metals. And I'm thinking about cobalt, especially from the DRC, and how it's such a hot button topic in electric vehicles. And from the little I know, I understand that those metals have the same mixing at the point of refining, or maybe even at the point of export, that makes some companies and some people and some governments claim we can never trace anything, so stop asking. And I'm wondering if by this focus on precious metals, if there are also some overlap in those critical and rare earth metals.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's see what he says on that one. Can he hear through there, Andrea? Ah, you got it.
The mic. Where's Sarah? Sarah needs to jump up and give mic training again. Actually, while we're waiting for his, would you please, Sarah? Nobody does it like you do.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Yud. I am a lawyer in the jewelry industry, but I am also a musician. And when you are speaking into a microphone, it should be not more than 2 fingers from your mouth, and it should be pointed at the back of your head. So you want a line from the back of your head out to the front. That is how a microphone should be held, not like this, because you can hear that it changes the sound of my voice, and definitely not like this, because this is totally useless. So just like this. Thank you so much.
I owe you, Sarah.
All right, that was good. We're still waiting on that, so I don't know if he's able to.
He was having technical difficulties a few minutes ago,
Okay.
but then he was back, so not sure.
Well, in the meantime, while we wait for him to write, if anyone has any questions about AJAC and what it looked like, it was amazing because they had a lot, almost many women from African women in mining from all over. And yes, Julie.
Oh, wait. Here, let us get the mic to you so everyone can hear you.
I'm going to try and use the mic correctly because I've taken lessons. Was the conference in Africa, did they have it virtual? And if not, can you teach them how to do that so that we can start attending those conferences too from a distance?
I don't think that they had it virtual. And that would be up to them, I guess, if they would want to do that. I'm sure they're capable of doing it, but depending on internet, as we see, because Wi-Fi and electricity continues to be a challenge. But, oh, he's back.
Muku's back.
Okay.
Now Now we just have to give them time to type.
Okay. Technology challenges always coming up.
Yeah, one question I had for him is whether there's any kind of interest in putting the same kind of marketing behind African gems as there is for like Colombian gems, Sri Lankan sapphires. Like, you know, the marketing, of course, adds to the price and the lure and the demand for it. When people Google, what kind of gem should I buy? You know, it's Colombian emeralds and Sri Lankan sapphires. It's not Malagasy sapphires, for example, even though they're marketed as Sri Lankan, but that's a different story. So I'm wondering if there can be some kind of thoughtfulness around that marketing piece, and possibly even like some kind of show of force at Tucson, for example. Some kind of like cocktail or social media. I'm not quite sure exactly what that would look like, but I just feel like that marketing piece has kind of been left out, and I'm wondering if that could be part of one of the approaches.
I love that.
I do too.
I think that's amazing.
Susan, you've got some answers from Mkhululi in there.
Okay. The Minerals Development Center is working on all minerals. What is being deemed as critical minerals is what Africa is calling strategic green minerals. And we have an African green minerals strategy to be launched in the third quarter. Okay. We could do it as far as virtual live stream, but it always is a challenge with connectivity. Okay.
And we're just waiting for an answer on the African Gems marketing idea. Were there other questions to put up in the meantime?
Sarah?
Can somebody run Sarah the mic?
It's here.
Oh, it's there, okay.
Thank you.
She knows how to use it.
I do. I'm curious about there was something in the community engagement and participation section about encouraging community participation in decision-making processes relating to mining operations. And I've seen that now in a couple of different standards, and I'm very curious about what that actually means. Like, what is envisioned with that? Is it that the community is helping manage the mining operations, or is it just that they're involved? Like, what does that actually mean?
Okay, I'll answer the one that we have here written first. AJAC intends on ensuring the world knows about hold on, wait, it skipped up, sorry. AJAC intends on ensuring the world knows about Ethiopian opal, Zambian emeralds, Mozambique rubies in all times of marketing and all terms of marketing. Great. And then we're waiting on the second one. So AJAC was actually the brainchild, the beginning from Monica Gachui, who's one of our co-founding partners at Virtue Gem. So that's why the Virtue Gem team, we were all lucky enough to be in that room, which was really amazing.
Susan, this question's for you, and it's actually a question. So again, I saw who was invited to this group, that it was governments, NGOs, academics, but I didn't see anything about consumer groups. So how are you going to reach out to consumers if they're not even invited? Were there any consumer groups there that could represent continents, countries, brands, anything? I mean, if we're talking about this, we have to be talking to the consumer.
Are you talking about for the African Union meeting, the AJAC
Yes,
meeting?
yeah.
I wasn't a part of the planning for that, and I didn't feel, as in the term African Union, I didn't feel that it wasn't meant for me.
There's also, we have a lot of conversation about this. Sorry, I'm talking from the back of the room, but we're not going to change the conversation in responsible supply chains until the consumers get involved, because it's the money that's going to talk. And so that means we have to find a way to get the message to consumers and have consumers push back. because we're not hitting the last mile of the jewelry industry. We're hitting from the mines to this room, but we're not getting to the retailer, and the retailer's the one that talks to the consumer. Now, we have some exemplary retailers in this room, but that's a lot of weight to carry. So we have got to figure out how to get the consumers pushing back, because the money is what's going to sway the conversation. Bob's looking for the mic.
I've got one answer here. Community engagement comes with practical implementation of what is deemed social license to operate. So I think that says a lot in a small amount of words.
Where are they?
So I'm a traditional retailer. My wife and I, we're small kind of people on the ass of the world store in Indiana. Though in my first life, I did own 11 stores with my father on generational. And we were also manufacturers of some significance at one point of emblematic jewelry. And to Andrea's point, the consumer is being completely left out of this. But the retail industry in this country is not going to respond to any of the issues that all of the people here care about if the consumer doesn't push the conservative retail industry, jewelry industry, to be worried and have interest in the same values that we have. Mm-hmm. So in talking to our consumers, we have to, part of that marketing plan has to be to bring those values to bear upon the independent jewelry industry, because the majority of them aren't interested in a human model. They're only interested in one thing. They're interested in how much money lands in their pocket. At the end of the day, they're greedy and they don't care about humanity. So unless the retail consumer is pushed to demand higher values from the retail jewelry industry, it's not going to change. And we've seen it happen in the past. The diamond industry has, DPC, way back when I was younger, drove diamond demand. DPC, what the hell is DPC? DPS drove diamond demand through the consumer. They convinced the consumer they needed a 3-stone ring. They convinced the consumer they needed a solitaire, so on and so forth. So it can be done, but it takes an enormous amount of money.
Or Will, we've got
Will.
one industry association in the room, MJSA. JA is not here. Tom? Oh, AGTA is here, sorry. You're right, I saw you walk in too. Okay, so we've got MJSA and AGTA in the room. That's movement, but it's not enough. We as an industry, it's our job to want this to happen, to want to make this change, so.
Ethical metalsmiths is in the room.
Ethical metalsmiths in the room. Sorry. Ethical metalsmiths is always in the room, so.
But we don't take that for granted. All right, I'm going to read back Mkhululi's, and then I'm going to ask Eric to answer that. So he says, traditionally the belief is that an exhibition engages consumers, and hence the conference part is meant to push for understanding of responsible sourcing to consumers. So then, Eric, if we're thinking about how, if you're considering you being a consumer, right, of the minerals, how do we want to have that collaboration and engagement occur in the future?
Yeah. i.e., I don't consider myself a consumer, even though we buy a lot of rough stones from Africa. But I keep coming back to the same thing. People in this room, as well as us, have been interviewed by Vogue, by a variety of different trendsetters, and rarely do we see in those magazines discussion of what is the benefit to a consumer to buy something that is traceable, responsibly produced. So somehow we need to engage those people so that the message actually gets to consumers and those consumers drive this direction. Yeah, the consumer is the individual person that puts it on their finger and wears the piece.
Thank you very much. I think maybe I can help on the issue of involving the consumers. It was really a big concern for us since the exhibition, the inaugural exhibition was done in Zambia. And then during our postmortem, it came out very strongly that there was this gap that needs to be filled. But then from the explanation of AMDC, they were saying that since it was an inaugural AJEC, there were lessons to be learned. So, and also they realized that the whole thing was not complete. So in future, the issue of consumers actually will be considered and considered very strongly. Thank you.
I think also just here at Chicago Conference, engaging the consumer. I think when I began, I thought that that was going to be the end goal and that we were going to have that interest. And it's kind of, I mean, just speaking off of the cuff, it's kind of a balance, right? And I think that we have a number of groups that are wanting to go consumer front, as the spinoff from Ethical Metalsmiths, that group, Better Jewelry, to be a source for retailers to engage. But you can see from here, and I'm not afraid of talking about it because I feel we need both sides, but there is maybe a balance in we can't really protect the industry from all the truths, but the things we bring here together sometimes are hard things that we want to try and tackle. I mean, the video we're going to show in a little bit about sex work, it's hard. It's hard to watch. And talking about how it relates to us is complicated. And we've been talking about these things for years, and we continue to talk about them. So I agree we need the consumers to have an understanding. And I think that it is time to engage. And I think we all are ready to. We have the knowledge. And there's a lot of passion and drive, I think, in the young jewelers coming forward to be initiating that engagement.
I just know that in the fashion industry, when the consumers saw what was happening and pushed back, we changed really, really fast. We didn't accomplish all the change, but a lot of change happened really fast once the consumers were aware and pushed. Susan, do you want to take one more question, or do you want to roll the next video?
Is it for Muku?
No, it's not for Muku.
Okay.
Oh, this question. There's no more for Muku in here.
Okay. All right. Sure, we can take the next one, and then, was it?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Alyssa from Mercurius Jewelry, and I just want to follow up on what Susan briefly mentioned. There are a group of members and non-members of Ethical Metalsmiths Action Coalition who have been working together as a project that grew out of the Action Coalition to create something called the Better Jewelry Project, which is a consumer-facing guide, because Susan is exactly right. The depth we get into in this type of conference is so important, but not necessarily something that people want to think about when they're sitting in front of you talking about their engagement ring. But they do want to know, and they want to know that they can trust you. But as an independent jeweler, all of us who've worked on this are independent jewelers, and we found that we don't necessarily have the resources ourselves to create the educational materials that our consumers want to see. So what we have done is started to work together to create open source consumer-facing materials that any jeweler can take, put their branding on, and spread the word to consumers. So it's very grassroots, but we're hoping that with Ethical Metalsmiths support and with the support of everybody who's here today, we'll start to get that out, and it can be, press-facing as well. So if you're interested in that, Anna, myself, Will, we all have cards that have a QR code, and you can sign up and find out more. And we're really grateful that Ethical Metalsmiths is, supporting this project and has empowered this group to work on that.
Perfect. On we go. So another person who couldn't get a visa this year was Mkhululi. And Chico, I guess I should go up here, I don't know. Chico's been working on a paper comparing rough exports of aquamarines from Malawi to cut single stones and getting the full benefit and economic benefit that we can. That paper is currently in peer review. So some of the data is from that paper, but I added on a little bit more about markets. So really, when he's talking now, and this is his view as one person in ASM. There are other views from other people here in the room, from other countries and from ASM. But what he's talking about is really what we began with, which is what is putting, how do we protect the jewelry industry and how are we at risk? And in my view, it's the poverty. So with that, I'll let Chico speak his part, and then I will come in on my own.
My name is Mkhululi. I'm from Malawi. I've been working in artisanal small-scale mining sector for a very long time, maybe 15, 16 years there. My work usually, I like supporting artisanal small-scale miners in whatever way I can. So it is my passion. It is my calling. ASM is my calling.
Malawi exports high-quality aquamarine, estimated between 150 and 450 kilograms annually. It is also one of the poorest countries in the world, ranked 174 out of 189 countries on the Human Development Index, and 74% of the people living there live below the poverty line of $1.90 per day, according to World Bank.
Malawi is one of the poorest countries in the world. Most of the people live below the poverty line of less than $1 a day. What pains me most is that the people who mines this beautiful aquamarine, which even some end up on jewelry being worn by celebrities. As the jewelry community, we need to support these people in source countries so that they should also be uplifted from the cycle of poverty to somewhere so that they can be able to have food, to pay medical bills, to pay school fees for their children. But currently, that's not the case because we are not supporting them. Let this conference, let the jewelry people out there hear my words. Let's support them.
So I think it's important that we look at what are the drivers of lost value for Malawi's aquamarine exports and kind of exports overall. And we'll go through each of these a little bit in this presentation.
On gem processing, gem processing in Malawi is very low. It is done at a very minimal level, maybe 0.01% of the total gems mined in Malawi go through processing. This is one, it can be attributed to lack of expertise, lack of equipment to work on, but also the buyers, they don't like to buy cut stones. They say, no, your workmanship is not good. But Rome was not built in a day. We need to understand that. We need to promote such kind of initiatives. So for source countries, they should also be doing in-country value addition. Maybe these big jewelry brands, you jewelers, you can make a quota of what you buy. You can say maybe let's buy 10% this year from source countries of cut stones, or even 50% or 20%. This will motivate the gem cutters to up their game, to start competing effectively with the other established gem cutting centers like India, Thailand, Sri Lanka. But if we deprive the cutters this chance, Malawi and Africa as a whole will not benefit from it. Their skills will still be below par. But it's you jewelers who are here and who have not attended this, who can help to promote skills development in gem cutting. Because if we shun them, if we usually say that their cuts are not good, their polish is not good, no, people learn through mistakes. Let's give these people a chance that they should also shine on the international stage. That next time we'll say that you jewelers who are here, you contributed towards something big, which as source countries we can be proud of, that no, these jewelers, they helped us to become who we are. If you can support the gem processing industry in Africa, you empower a lot of people. You will create livelihoods for so many people. And it will help to bring more wealth into the source countries. Because when we export cut stones, we are creating jobs. We are helping to pay more taxes to source country governments. We are helping to build skills. So I urge you, our beloved jewelers, that give source countries a chance. They deserve better, and you can make it possible for them. Thank you.
I like his idea of starting with maybe 5% in your jewelry line and starting by percentages, which we've always talked about and heard from Fair Mind, how to start integrating, and you can start small by setting aside so much of your budget. This graph, we needed clarity on it. We were asked for what the price comparisons are of rough to cut, but what we're looking at is the rough is, he gathered that information from the export offices in Malawi, and we're basing that on the cut gem as a single cut gem as graded in a gem guide book, at least for the high quality. And we were looking at it the extra fine. So we're thinking that that's where the numbers are, but I would need to second confirm those numbers on that graph, that that's exactly the price level that he's talking about here. It's a large, I think it's a 5.6, maybe bigger aquamarine cut in Malawi. So a little bit more of what we were talking about earlier, teaching knowledge of your own supply chain and international pricing. How can people get more benefit from their gemstones? Knowing where they are in the supply chain and knowing what that value is for where they are. Transparency in international pricing of gemstones is something that's talking about full transparency. So transparency isn't us just looking down the supply chain and seeing everything we want to see, but it's enabling the people who are selling the gems to know where their gems go and how much their gems are worth. And I think a lot of this is, we talk about trusted partners a lot, and we have to be able to have trust both ways. We have to be able to trust people to teach, to do the knowledge sharing of this is how much your gem is worth, you know, on an international market if it's B2B, and we go into this a little bit more, or, you know, if you have that market access. And this is what it means as far as capacity, too. So understanding the price points in your value chain, this is very approximate, based on a supply chain that's longer than some and shorter than others, and not showing the value addition of when a gem jumps price from cutting. It's simply showing if the gem touches a hand this many times, and if it's doubled every time, then this is what this supply chain would look like. And I think it's important to see and to understand that although the miner has a very small section there of what this profit is, there may be reasons why that miner is selling at the mine site for that lower profit. It could be higher capacity, it could be low-grade material, it could be large parcels, and that is what they can sell at the mine site. So I think the finer issues of capacity have to be understood in this as well. And it's very complex, and there could be a supply chain where every single person here is valued. And I think that the sellers and everybody in the supply chain needs to look at that and see, is this a valued partner? Is this somebody that's bringing in high capacity sales for me? Do they have market access that I don't have? So I think that's one thing to always be understanding and to be talking about it, explaining, evaluate your supply chain. If you have good partners, then value them for who they are and what they're bringing to you. So I think the thing that can cause frustration and causes a lot of hurdles that we see is that there's a lack of understanding from a lot of source country traders and dealers and miners and cutters that I see as to what the rest of the supply chain looks like. And what I always do is I put that whole blue section of retailers and why are these gems worth so much, or they appear to be selling for so much in the US when I only get this amount. And I always tell them, I go back to the jewelry analogy. As a jeweler, I put my jewelry in a store knowing they're going to mark it up 2.5%. Why? Because they have the market. They're paying for the bricks and mortar. They're paying for salespeople. They're paying to open the doors. They're paying to market you. So an understanding of why gems look so expensive when you're at this end of the supply chain and you don't understand what all of those margins are doing for you on the other end. So the red is your AGTA dealer, your international dealer that spends the money on Tucson, that has jewelers that follow them. So why are these different price points valuable, and why are these people valuable to you? Because as Eric Braunwart says, your market's you can only get as much gems, money for your gem as you can sell it for. So it's your market. And then the yellow is the jewelers. So this is taken from Instagram, and everybody sees this, right? I looked up hashtag gems for sale. And there are the gems, there are the prices, and I think what the understanding that needs to be there is, if this is somebody that's a gem trader in source country, what are they doing by selling one time to one person that's never going to come back again? They're losing margins because they could be having that margin that they see that's 4%, marked up 4% more. So they're losing money just by selling a gem once at this. They're losing any trade relationships they have. If they're selling to a gem dealer, why would that gem dealer want to go back to them again when this comes up on the internet? And so I think that the answer is, again, it's talking about what the supply chain looks like and talking about what is valuable here and what is valuable there and what is valuable to you in that market, so you don't lose that. And I think that that's why I think that there should be transparency and valuation and harmonization and some pricing along the supply chain. So another way that they lose a lot of revenue, and particularly, this is Chico's last statement that he talks about smuggling. And I think it's interesting because he talks about how intricate it is and brings up things that I wouldn't have known about. But that's an estimate from source country that they're losing 70% of their aquamarine from smuggling.
Mzimba produces a lot of aquamarine. Mzimba also shares a long border with Zambia where the belt is just the same. So there is a lot of aquamarine production on both sides of the border. Malawi produces maybe 150 to 400 kgs of top quality aquamarine, between 20k to 40k of captions. But it's very pathetic that when you look at the export data, only 1%, less than 1% of the total production is exported through official channels, which deprives the country from making revenue from its resources. So it is very important that even the people on the ground who are trading, the dealers, the miners, they need to love their country also, because we are talking of responsible sourcing. We are talking of traceability. The minerals we are selling needs to go through the formal channels so that everybody should benefit from it. And if most of the minerals are exported illegally, many people suffer, because that money, if you export it through the official channels, it goes into schools, it goes into the health system, it goes into into the public sphere where every citizen in the country is helped. So some of these stones which are smuggled end up on the jewelry which the jewelers make. They need to follow up whether they need to trace back if those minerals, if those gemstones they are working on pass through the normal channels, because as jewelers it is our duty also to make sure that the source countries are making money out of it, are making revenue out of it. But if as jewelers we are silent, we are not following up on such issues, smuggling will continue and the people on the ground will continue to be deprived of their right to fair business.
So what can jewelers do? Ethical Metalsmiths recommends buy gems from someone that traces the gemstone back to where they came out of the earth. So I think that these three areas are kind of drivers for losing value, and something that we can work on just by being more transparent and traceable throughout the supply chain. Thanks. If we want to do Q&A, I can answer what I can answer. Okay. Yes.
Hold on one second, I'll get you a mic. I'll get you two.
I'll start with one. We'll see how it goes. I probably should know this, but about ethical metalsmiths, is there a code of ethics that jewelers who belong to that organization follow?
I will give it to either Barbara Wheat, the ED, or Christina Mall, the current president.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to try to hold this the right way. It's such a great question, and we invite anyone to spend time on the website or join the group to learn more. We do ask that people adhere to some code of values, and we suggest that you be prepared to answer questions if they come up along the way. So if, for example, if somebody is only trying to bring in diamonds from Russia right now, that would obviously be really problematic because of sanctions and so forth. So it's case by case, and there's really not a one-size-fits-all, which is why it's not like a 20-question Q&A with yes and no boxes to tick off, because first of all, who is really ethical, right? It's really aspirational that we want to do right for people and planet. And there's no really easy checklist for that. And also, we're not all metalsmiths. So pretty much if you are interested in learning on how to make the world a better place in our jewelry industry, we invite you to learn more. And we do have a code of conduct that we expect our leadership to abide by and so forth. And I'm really happy to talk more about this with anyone else. But we are not a trade association, and we're not a watchdog for human behavior. We're a community for action and education and sharing of resources. So I hope that answers your question. And we love collaborating and talking to other groups and people from different walks of life. So we're all in it together, right? I think. Yeah?
Yes.
Thank you for asking.